I'm Joel Searles. I'm with the Entertainment Media Liaison Office here in Hollywood for the Marine Corps. Got another great interview for you. It's with Chad Robichaux. He is a former Recon and MARSOC Marine. He's here to speak with us about resiliency. His life's also being turned into a feature film. It's quite inspirational. Please stay tuned. Hey everyone, Major Searles here again with Hard Charging, part of our Marine Corps Entertainment Media Liaison Office podcast. I've got Chad Robichaux, spent 14 years in the Corps in Force Recon and MARSOC, got to spend time in DevGru. We've got him here today. He's got a very inspirational story. He's got a book out. It's called An Unfair Advantage. It's going to be turned into a feature film. How you doing, Chad?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
Wonderful. Pleasure to have you. We're going to jump right into it here with some of the questions. You've had a really great Marine Corps career. You've done, you did about 20 years. You did 8 pumps to overseas and deployed. You got to work with some really high-level teams, DevGru and I'm sure Green Berets. What experiences have made you the person you are today?
Yeah, well, first of all, my family's a Marine Corps family. My father was a Marine who served in Vietnam. I served as a Force Recon Marine. I actually did 14 years and didn't retire. But I did do 8 deployments as a Force Recon Marine assigned to a JSOC task force. And then both my sons are Marines. So my oldest son, Hunter, was an Anglo Marine, went to Afghanistan as well, which was my 9th and hardest deployment. And, having a son being away in the same place you went. And then my youngest son, Hayden, is currently going through his MOS school right now to become a crash fire rescue Marine. And he'll be stationed in Miramar. So, yeah, it's a big Marine Corps family, a lot of experience, unfortunately, with deployments from my dad to myself to my son. And, through those experiences, really shaped, kind of who I am and what I do today, continuing to serve the Marines and other branches of service on the active duty side and the veteran community. When I came home from my last deployment, I faced some of the same things that many of our warriors face today. I was dealing with anger, frustration, depression, and some physiological effects that started happening early on, and maybe like around my 5th or 6th deployment, where I started coming home and being really just irritable and angry and frustrated. It's just not my normal self, and it started to manifest in some physiological symptoms that I never thought that I would deal with. I remember my arms would go numb, my face would go numb. I'd feel like my throat was swelling shut. These are signs of panic attacks. Right. And I didn't want to ask for help because I was in this kind of little special operations group, and I thought the guys are going to think I'm weak, because that's what I would have thought of one of those guys who had told me they were dealing with that. And so I didn't say anything. And I didn't want to go to mental health because I thought, if I went to mental health and I got diagnosed with anything or put on medications, I may lose my SCI clearance and not be able to do my job anymore. So I just thought it was something I could handle, and I just pushed it down. And over time, things got much worse. In fact, during my last deployment, we lost a number of team members, a few U.S. service members, and 10 Afghans. When some of the Marines, especially my 03 brothers, might think, "What do you care about losing some Afghans for?" Well, to give a little context, these Afghans were my teammates, and I lived in their homes, ate dinner with their families, played soccer with their kids. These were my brothers, and I loved these guys, and I would have died for them, and they would have died for me. In fact, I do believe they did die for me. And when that happened, if I was hanging on by a thread, that thread was broken, and the wheels really began to unravel, fall off for me, and my life began to unravel. And the PTSD symptoms I was dealing with just immediately amplified. There was a higher risk of threat of what I was doing, and I realized that my behaviors and actions were putting other people in danger. And so I finally spoke up, said something, was brought home, put before a psychologist, diagnosed with PTSD, and my family and I faced head on with many of our warriors face today. I mean, the level of panic attacks I was dealing with were debilitating. I mean, it was like, I hear people talk about panic attacks sometimes. The only way I really know how to describe it is like, imagine being chained in the bottom of a swimming pool and you're drowning. The level of panic you would feel drowning to death, but you never die. Like it never ends. Like imagine that panic for one breath of air, and you never get that breath of air, but you just don't ever die. And that level of panic was how I felt, like 24/7. And the medicine they gave me made me feel worse. I had this feeling of either being a zombie on one type of medicine, and when they changed the other medicine, I felt like I was being poisoned. It was paranoid that it was gonna kill me. And so my wife and I really just tried to find something, an outlet for me. And if you know my other background, I dove into martial arts. I'd say it's something that I did since I was little, but I'm still little. I'm 5'3". So I did it my whole life. And I was already a professional MMA fighter, dove into that, and had a lot of success there. I won a world title. I was 18-2 as a professional fighter, fought on a lot of the like pay-per-view and events you might see on television, Strike Force and Bellator, fought for Bellator main event for their belt. And ended up with a world title and an 18-2 professional record. So on the surface, it looked like I was getting better, but I was still dealing with these panic attacks. My marriage was falling apart. I was a complete lunatic and tyrant to my family, screaming at them like a Marine Corps drill instructor, slamming doors, punching holes in the walls, acting like a complete idiot to my family. I was really out of control and didn't have control of myself. And so even if my professional career as an athlete was doing well in my transition from the Marine Corps, right, my personal life was not, and my mental health and physical health, my emotional health was not. And it all came crashing down. My wife and I faced a divorce, sold our home, moved into 2 separate apartments, and filed for divorce. In the midst of that, the reaction that I had was to come to this conclusion that my family would be sad without me, but they would be better off. And unfortunately, we both know that same hopeless thought finds a home in the hearts of over 20 veterans every single day.
Right.
I decided I was going to take my life. And as I would sit in that closet with my pistol, and I had a Glock 22 pistol, 40 caliber pistol. I put my family pictures on the floor around me, and I tried to build up the courage to pull that trigger. I even was like very deliberate. Obviously, I know what a gun does, my experience. So I'm like, even the right angle, I wanted to be fast. But this thought would come over me every time I put that gun in my head was, who's going to find me? Somebody's going to hear the gunshot, or you're going to show up. You're not going to show up. You're going to be missing. So someone's going to find you. And so that thought would come over my head of how it would play out. And the only other person that had a key to my apartment at that time was my oldest son, Hunter, who was 13 at the time. And I just could not imagine my kid finding me that way. So that was enough to pump the brakes. But I was in such a dark place, Joe, that the next day I tried to build up the courage to do it again. And it was one morning I was in the closet. I had that pistol in my hand and I heard a knock on my door. Wasn't going to answer it. And when I heard my wife's voice announce herself, it was like almost like a child being caught doing something wrong, like a panic. I hid that pistol. She would have never came in my closet in my apartment and found it, but I hid it, probably out of shame. And I answered the door. And it's kind of weird to say this and kind of almost sickening to say, but I actually was so mad at her for interrupting me killing myself. I just opened the door and I was yelling at her, what are you doing here? Like, why are you bothering me? Like, what are you here for? And I'm just like, just belittling her for being there and just railing her. And in the middle of that argument, she like stopped me and said, how could you do all the things that you did in the Marine Corps? We met when we were 17 and 18. So she saw me go through RIP. Back then it was called RIP for not BRPC. I went through, she saw me through RIP. She saw me go to BRC to become a Recon Marine and do the, overcome those challenges. And when I was 120 something pounds, and do all these schools, go to, combat dive and free fall school and the shooting pack, all this stuff that she saw me do over the years that require obviously tremendous amount of discipline and work ethic. And then as an MMA fighter, like she saw me, train for these fights and cut weight. I'd lose like 30 pounds for a fight. And the discipline it takes to do that. I mean, I look like a Holocaust victim, like bones sucked in my face and stuff like that. Like she saw this discipline. She's like, how could you do all of those things? And when it comes to your family, you'll quit. And I think I could probably resonate with everybody listening.
Right.
Especially in the Marine Corps side here. Like there's no more soul cutting word to me than to be called a quitter.
Right.
Absolutely right. I've been successful with some professional things in my life. When it came to the most important things, being a husband, being a father, and being that young 17-year-old kid that stood on these yellow footprints and made an oath and committed to doing something important with my life. I mean, when I went to the Marine Corps, it was a second chance of life for me. And I embraced that, and didn't just become a Marine. I became a Recon Marine and made it to Force and represented the Marine Corps at JSOC. Like I did some successful things professionally, but when it came to the most important things, I had quit. And she was right. And I had to, in that moment, kind of reconcile that I was being called out and including quitting on my own will to live. And in that moment, I made a pretty radical decision. And I decided to get help. I knew I couldn't do it alone. And I knew I couldn't do it with the people I surrounded myself by, because I really surrounded myself by people that told me everything I wanted to hear. Yeah. Not what I needed to hear. And I needed some accountability. In the Marine Corps, you have a lot of accountability. When you transition out, especially if you're like an athlete winning, or you're successful in business, or you start getting successful, you just have the ability to push accountability in your life. So I didn't have any. And so I asked my wife, is there someone, she was going to this church, is there someone at this church you're going to kind of outside of my circle that could help hold me accountable to make some changes in my life? And I met a man named Steve Toth, who he wasn't a Marine and he wasn't an MMA fighter or anything like that. But I sat across from him, and I was at Starbucks coffee shop, and I was written a 5-paragraph order of how I was going to fix my life. That's kind of how my mind operates. I'm like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to have a plan. And it was like really good, by the way. I was like probably like proudly and smugly like slid it over to him, and he didn't even look at it. He slid it back over to me and told me I was going to fail. I remember being like really offended, like, who is this jerk? Like, your job is to show my wife that I'm trying so I can win her back. And he just slid this paper back to me and told me I was going to fail and end up in the same spot. And I remember what he said. He tapped on that paper. He said, if this plan doesn't have anything to do with your relationship with God, I'm not going to waste your time, and I'm not going to let you waste mine. Now, I'll pause here and say that, I know this is like a religious show or faith kind of spiritual thing, but the Marine Corps talks about 4 pillars of resiliency, like mind, body, spirit, social. And if I really inventoried my life at that time, and really when the time I went to Afghanistan, like I was mentally tough, I was physically tough, I was socially, I was surrounded by all the right people. I was in a top tier 1 special operations unit. Like I had all the right people, like checked all those boxes, and spiritually, like I had to wear Christian stamped on my dog tag, but I was really had a pretty shallow faith and kind of skeptical. And so when he said that, if this plan doesn't have anything to do with your relationship with God, I really thought, man, I tried everything. Like I've been on the medication. I've been through VA programs. I've been through counseling. I had professional success. I had a financial success at that time too. All those things that I tried, some good, some bad, none of those things really changed my situation. So I came to this conclusion, like, what do I have to lose? We have a saying in the work I do now through helping other veterans. If what you're doing isn't working, then why not try something different? I came from this moment, right? Everything I did didn't work. So why not try something different? And so I gave faith. I gave God a chance, and I made a faith profession, surrendered my life to Christ as a Christian, and beyond that decision, Steve mentored me for an entire year in what I would define as discipleship, as biblical living. And what that really means is, he really taught me that I couldn't change my past, of course, but I could change the way I responded to things moving forward. And as cliche as it may sound, I came to this conclusion: I didn't have to have my past to find my future. I can make different decisions moving forward. And as bad as some of those things that happened to me were, and some bad things happened to me. I mean, Sergeant Foster Harrington, 3rd Force Recon, we served together for 10 years. He was killed on our first deployment. I remember being so angry, and things from my childhood and all these things, bad things that happened to me, as bad as they were, those things did not lead me to be in that closet with a pistol in my hand. What led me there were the choices that I made in response to those things. And now I'm being mentored in a different way of living, a different way to make choices in response to the hardships of my life through this biblical mentorship. And I begin to really intentionally and deliberately apply that in my life. And the result of that was a pretty radical change for me. I found restoration in my own brokenness and that PTSD thing, the way I dealt with this anxiety and depression. I found restoration in my marriage and family. We've been married 26 years now. Just got back from Jamaica, celebrate my 26 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I found hope for the first time in a very long time. And ultimately what I found that is probably most profound is purpose. And as Marines, we know that the most important thing we could have is a sense of purpose. In fact, I believe personally that we were created to have purpose. And without it, we kind of wither up and die. When people ask me why 20 plus veterans take to life every day, I don't think it's because of the things we've seen or did abroad. I think it's because we felt like we had a clear mission. We felt like we had a clear purpose. And one day we woke up and felt like there was no more mission and purpose in our life anymore. And in that moment, you kind of wither up and die, and you don't have a desire to live anymore, because we have to feel there's a mission and purpose in front of us.
We do.
And,
agree with that. So thanks for sharing all that, Chad. I mean, that's very, very deep stuff, and it's obvious you've went through self-reflection time and your own spiritual time and your time with your family and counselors. It's apparent, and it's great to see that you've made it through to the other side and are still pressing forward. What drives you? You're talking about mission and things. What drives you now? What is your new mission after your service in the Corps?
Well, I think it's that sense of purpose that I discovered. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is Mark Twain. It says the two most important days in a person's life: the day they're born and the day they find out why. When Steve Toth introduced me to this kind of life that I believe I was created to live,
right,
it ignited that why. And for me, it was sharing kind of what I discovered with others. Like if I was dying of cancer and I found a cure, you don't want to share it. You feel obligated to share it.
Right.
So I just had a deep burden on my heart as I realized that other people were struggling with the same things I struggle with.
Right.
20 suicides, 20 plus suicides a day, which we know only 50% of the demographic reports. So it has to be much higher than that. But even one's too many.
Right.
The divorce rates, the people are dealing with anxiety and depression, like all these of my brothers and sisters that served in the military are dealing with the same thing. And I felt like I had the cure. So a burden was really laid on my heart to pay it forward and share with others. So to answer your question, what drives me today beyond, my service to the Marine Corps is to continue to serve. My tagline on my email is still serving, continue to serve to pay forward what I discovered. The lessons I learned as a warrior, so warrior to warrior, one generation to the next, to take those lessons and pay it forward to others. And and for those who are deeply struggling, to provide to them, which I believe is the solution to these problems. I mean, we all talk about these problems. I believe there's a solution to them, and I'm able to offer that. And that revelation for me manifested in the founding of Mighty Oaks Foundation. It's where I do those things today full time. Get to serve, continue to serve, and in that preparation and sharing those lessons in the recovery side as well.
So you're obviously a leader again. You're leading people on a purposeful mission, and you're having that influence that we had as leaders or have as leaders in the Corps, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, that's I think when we go, there's only 0.5% of the population of our country that serves in the military.
Yeah.
And you take that 0.5%, and then the military does an incredible job of training us to be leaders and people that overcome any type of challenges in this world. And we do a really good job of doing that in the military to keep our nation safe and to go defend people around the world that can't defend themselves. And then we come home one day and we're civilians again, Chad again, and Joel again, and just people again. But when we go back, I believe if we we go back and we can take our hardships and let them crush us and become dependent on our communities, we go back and dust ourselves off and rise back up, get well, and then be contributors to those communities and take those skills and attributes that we made us special to be that small percentage that joined, and then and learn those skills and experience in the military taught us, and taking those hardships and lessons that we learned abroad that no one even has any idea what it's like to go to a place like Afghanistan and serve in a place like that. Take those things and give back to our communities, starting in our homes, and leading our own homes, and pull our homes together in our communities and do that through our nation.
Very much so. A grassroots and bringing the traits and principles we learned as leaders and were trained for back to our communities. We've talked about different leadership aspects. Who have been some of the most impactful mentors in your time in life? Steve Toth, the person I said kind of me, has been the most significant person in my life, because he came in my life at my darkest time. I'd love to say there's so many people I can give a list of so many incredible leaders through the reconnaissance community, over at the other commands I was at over at JSOC, just some incredible military leaders. But that's to do a job. And I don't want to take away from that. But the most significant people I see in my life has been people that taught me how to live life in and out of the uniform. And, Steve Toth really taught me that my identity wasn't tied in a job. It's amazing. The uniform you're wearing is one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. Right. But one day it comes off, and you have to be able to transcend that. And if your identity is tied in that uniform, when it comes off, it'll crush you. It will.
And so Steve taught me that lesson to say, it's what you did. He's like, what you did was amazing, but you have to be amazing in and out of the uniform. And it's really taught me that. It taught me identity. My identity was deep of that, and really mentored me. And so I just look up to him. He's the model of person that I try to align my life to. And along the way in this work I do at Mighty Oaks, I've had some incredible mentors step into my life. One of the most significant ones is I'm really blessed to say Sergeant Major Carlton Kent, who's a 16th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps,
yes,
who serves on my board, has become a personal mentor of mine. And I'm on the phone with him at least twice a week for the last probably 7 years. And he just, he's personally mentored me professionally and oftentimes personally. And him, Alan West, is another gentleman who's become a really great mentor of mine, and another. As a Marine, I have to kind of humble myself to say this: an Army guy, Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who's Jerry Boykin's an incredible man, and man, even outside of his time as 36 years of special operations, founding member of Delta Force, he's just like on a very personal level, in my own spiritual journey, he's been one of the most significant figures in my life. But I say today, like current at the moment, Sergeant Major Carlton Kent is probably the person that speaks most into my life. If I have a problem at work, I have a problem in personal life, my phone call first goes to him, and I always know he's going to answer. I'm going to get a call back within 5 minutes. And I know he's a busy guy, but love that guy.
Wonderful. You heard great things about all of them. In fact, Sergeant Major Kent came to speak to us at TBS, him and General Conway. So I've been within 5 feet of Sergeant Major Kent, but I never had the pleasure of speaking to him. So it was cool. It's cool. You've shared about your time coming up in the Corps and being a young man and being in Recon, and you look back on life. If there was anything you could tell your 18-year-old self, what would it be and why?
That's a question I reflected on a lot, because it's kind of a weird thing, right? I look at my life and I'm like, man, I had a hard life. I mean, when I went in the Marine Corps, my father, I kind of bragged about my dad being a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran earlier, but my dad was a tyrant. I mean, he physically beat the hell out of us every day because he never got well. And so I grew up a very like physically abused, and I don't mean spankings with a belt. I mean like physically abused.
Yeah.
When I was 13 and 14 years old, my brother and I decided we would join the military, become Recon Marines at that very young age. We're both athletes, started training at the young age together. He was a year older than me. Mm-hmm. And a year into that, he was shot and killed. So, it's just a really devastating childhood. My family fell apart. I probably wasn't going to graduate high school. The Marine Corps took me in, if you could believe it, without a high school diploma. And I made a promise to get my GED, which I did in 29 poems at Copper Mountain College. And all these years later, I have the MBA. I can't spell one, but I got one. And I'm just so thankful for the Marine Corps at that time, 17, 18 years old, for giving me that second chance at life. I think the hardships of my childhood allowed me to embrace everything the Marine Corps offered me, that clean slate, and really just appreciate it. I've never felt like I belonged there. I'm like, I didn't deserve this. It was a gift, and so I'm going to embrace it. And then I've just always had that mindset of not having earned it. And I think that's kind of healthy. That was a little bit healthy for me. It made me feel like a sense of appreciation, even now to this day. Like what I get to do today, I'm like, man, there's so many more people that deserve this more than me. And so I just really have always had this appreciation. And so that hardships have really made me who I am. So I kind of appreciate that. I almost don't want to go back and tell my 18-year-old self anything different, because I love where I'm at today. But if I could tell myself some things different, maybe I could spare myself and my family a lot of pain. And I look at my son, Hunter. I can talk about mentors. He's probably one of the people I look up to most in my life, because he's always been this like steadfast, mature, balanced guy. And when I watched him go into the Marine Corps at 18 years old, and even when he deployed as an Anglo Marine, to be embedded with the Georgians and who are out patrolling, and I'm like, he's going to see combat. He's not just going to Afghanistan. He's going to see combat.
Right.
And it scared me. But I just always had this like sense of like, I kind of look up to him at that younger age, because he's so, we talk about those pillars of resiliency, like mind, body, spirit, social. He has it all. I mean, he's so balanced, and I knew he would be able to endure the hardships of anything he would face because of that. And if I could go like give a model for myself at 18 years old, it would be everything that he has, my son Hunter has. I'd love to see that in myself. And I know, like, even though he's faced some hardships, he just bounces back so quickly because he's so solid. And that's why, one of the things I'm privileged to do is I get to go tell those 18-year-old young Marines at MCRD. For 6 years now, the Marine Corps allowed me to go speak to all the recruits at MCRD on one kind of blanket group, resiliency, and then the kind of more faith-based group on spiritual resiliency. We're going to talk about those pillars of resiliency. And the Marine Corps does a lot of things, puts a lot of things on papers that seem silly, like 4 pillars of resiliency, but they actually got this one right. There's a lot to those pillars of resiliency. And I think all the previous commandants have really got this right, and it's something that's important. And I think understanding those 4 pillars of resiliency. I wish when I was 18 years old, a speaker would have came and explained what those meant to me, not just mind, body, spirit, hoorah. Like what does it actually mean? Like, what's it mean to be mentally tough, physically tough, have a strong social network? Who speaks into your life? Who do you let speak into your life? And what's a strong spiritual foundation mean? I wish somebody would have told me that at 18 years old. So if I go back and tell my 18-year-old self something, it'd be to teach that same lesson that I taught my son, and that I get to go to MCRD and tell these young recruits today. Long answer, but
hey, that's a great answer. And we had some resiliency people come and speak to us at OCS and at TBS, which was great. And that was the late 2000s. But I think that it started there in the 2000s with the different Iraq and Afghanistan. Before that, though, I'm sure you're right. You just go through, just be resilient, Marines. What is exactly okay, I guess I'll just watch Heartbreak Ridge and think I'm Gunny Highway or something, or, I'll read Chesty Puller's bio. So that's, it's great to hear that the impact that you're getting to have. And then also, it sounds like some of your example you set at home with your sons has led them along that a much more foundational and grounded path. So when they deploy, they can come back and be able to be balanced again.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, this has really been great getting to hear, your thoughts, and you've already shared about, what you're most proud of as being a Marine. Is there anything you'd want to add to that before we wrap up today?
Well, what I get to do today, Mighty Oaks Foundation, there's a lot of great things I've got to be privileged to do in my life, being a Marine, being a Recon Marine, Force Recon, representing the Marine Corps at JSOC, and being an athlete. Like, all those things are amazing things. But what I'm most proud of in my life today is the work I get to do at Mighty Oaks Foundation.
Right.
I've been able to pay forward what my wife, what Steve Toth and others have done for me to help me get well, and not just get well, but be in a position to help others and pay it forward. And since, that 10 years ago, I've been able to speak to 250,000 active duty troops.
Wow.
Resiliency, bases around the world. We get requests from bases around the world to speak to active duty troops. So any commands listening, we do that for free. I could go and speak, or some of my team can. I've written 7 books now, 2 #1 bestsellers, and a lot on resiliency, and being able to give away 150,000 copies of my books to troops. And then we have a recovery program at Mighty Oaks Foundation called a legacy program, where we serve active duty military veterans from the veteran community, spouses, and we do 35 one-week camps a year that are peer-to-peer mentorship, so they're not clinical. And even the Marine Corps sends people in orders to it. We've had 4,000 graduates in the last 10 years, but we're doing about 1,000 per year now. And we follow that up with the aftercare. And by the way, it's free to everyone, including travel. We raise and spend about $3.5 to $4 million a year doing these programs. And so that's free to everyone, to those listening, including the spouses. And we are able to pay for it by the help of a grateful nation. And the last thing that we do is, because of the successes we've had through our programs at Mighty Oaks, we've been able to speak into policy in Washington, D.C. and get faith programs back as an option within the VA and DOD for those service members who want to choose that path outside of clinical care, or in combination with clinical care. So those are the things I'm most proud of today, the work that we get to do at Mighty Oaks Foundation with so many incredible, members on my team. So
Great. That's probably some of the best news some of these people get to hear all day. So, we've also touched on the fact that your book, Is an Unfair Advantage, is going to be made into a feature film. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe what you'd like to even see make to the screen?
Yeah. First of all, when I was asked to do it, I was terrified of that idea, and I said no. I was like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want to be one of those, military guys, especially from the special operations community, that goes and makes a movie about their story. And but I was like, I got good mentors in my life. Let me call some of them. So I called General Boykin, if you know Black Hawk Down. He was the general in General Boykin, the big guy with the big cigar. And I said, hey, sir, I don't want to do this, but I'm just wondering, what do you think about it? He's like, well, first of all, that's pretty arrogant. That's pretty arrogant of you to say no, because it's not your story. It's God's story and the story of your friends. And you're going to travel around and speak to reach people to help bring people to Mighty Oaks. So why would you say no? Like, it's pretty selfish of you. And I was like, okay, I guess I got the mentorship answer I needed to hear, the hard answer, because that's just how he is. I said yes, but I put a lot of stipulations into the production company, thinking that I'd make it so difficult that they would say no to do it. And one of those would be to plugging Mighty Oaks at the end. So veterans who watch the film or active youth service members who watch the film will not just see the problem, but they'll see the hope and have an option for themselves and for their communities moving forward, a free option, which we offer. And that was a yes. And the other is that I would be the technical military advisor or in charge of the technical military advisors. So the story was told accurate because I didn't want some cheesy, I don't want to see somebody there, holding the M4 with the boat locked to the rear. And I wanted it done right. And also it's going to represent some of my brothers who died in combat. Mainly one of the main characters that we'll see him die in the film is Sergeant Foster Harrington from 3rd Force Recon Company. And it means a lot to me that they're honored right. And their stories told correctly. And so I wanted control of that. And I was able to get what I wanted. And so amazing guy named Jim Clock, who is one of the producers, David Barrett, who's the producer of Blue Bloods on CBS, #1 show on CBS, is the director. And who's playing me? Kevin Hart. So I'm just kidding. But Kevin Hart, short like me. We kind of look alike. No, Kevin Hart, that's kind of a running joke because we could see him running around Afghanistan screaming, scared. But we have no idea who's playing me. We do know, we do have one, I can't say who it is, but we have one supporting actor that's like really, really prominent name. Everyone would know the name. So we're going to have some really pretty high level cast for the film, I think, and expected around 2022, early 2022, maybe Veterans Day release. I think they're going to start filming it around March or this year. They'll start filming. So
wonderful! I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Every SEAL movie has buds, and so Marine Corps is going to have a movie that's going to have BRC. So we're going to have BRC in the movie. So. Finally, an updated version of Heartbreak Ridge, where you have Recon Marines and you're doing the BRC. That'll be great. You can film there at Pendleton. Pendleton's got the Recon's there, and a lot of that training and stuff's there. That pool they put you in and they spray water on you, I'm sure, is there as well. I've heard about that. Yeah, when I went through BRC, it was in Coronado. It was still in Coronado. Now it's man, we've come such a long way. The Recon community has a year-long pipeline. So you go through BRP, you go through 4 weeks of SOI, BRPC, BRC, pre-scuba, combat dive, jump, free fall, SEER, a shooting package, all before you go to your unit. And all that's done right there at Camp Pillen. And those Marines, graduate BRC on a Friday, and then Monday they're back in doing pre-scuba, and they go through the pipeline for a year. Marine Corps has built an incredible program, and a lot of old school guys are like, "Oh man, these guys got it made," and I'm like, "That's awesome, they got it."
Yeah,
it's so incredible. I'm so happy. I'm so happy and proud of my community to have that. Continuous improvement,
as the Marine Corps is all about, always getting better. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for your time today, Chad. It's looking forward to your film. I've got a copy of your book. I'm looking forward to checking that out more fully. I was able to get through a little bit of it, but I really, really have enjoyed getting a chance to speak with you, and look forward to following up with you maybe on another interview here in the future whenever your film comes out. Get a premiere at Camp Pendleton.
All our books, if you want, you can buy them online, but any Marine can get them free by our website. And Unfair Advantage was, it's endorsed by Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, has a presidential endorsement on it. It was the General Neller had put it in the Commandant's reading book library, Commandant's library.
Yes.
And then also that we have a documentary out called Never Fight Alone. You can watch it at iamsecond.com/Never Fight Alone. And it's a documentary about kind of my life and the Mighty Oaks Foundation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chad. Have a great rest of your day.
Semper Fi.